Hello and welcome to the wonderful city of Chania on the Greek island of Crete. Join me in this video as we explore the main things to see and do in Chania, such as the scenic coastal harbour, the Venetian lighthouse, the beautiful old town, and a few other main attractions. We'll also deep dive into some of Chania's fascinating history along the way, so strap yourself in and enjoy the ride. Let's go and explore, shall we? Alright, now hello, good morning and welcome to Chania. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, my name's Ben. Hello. Got some lovely views behind me of the mountains and we're just skirting around the outside of the old town. We've got the Venetian walls right here. But there's plenty of things that I want to show you in this video, and there's also a special surprise right at the end, so make sure you stick around for that. But anyway, we're going to head over that way. See, it's just over there. Let's go and explore, shall we? We begin our exploration of Chania just to the west of the old town, where we will skirt alongside these large fortress walls, which will lead us to the most beautiful part of the city. The walls were built when Crete was under rule of the Republic of Venice around 500 years ago, while the threat of the nearby Ottoman Empire was growing. They're impressively imposing too, and this ditch you can see outside the wall is the 60 metre wide and 15 metre deep moat they built alongside it. Anyway, moving on. We reach the seafront and continue to follow the city walls east towards the old town harbour. After a few minutes walking and passing some slight ruins in the walls, we get our first glimpse onto the wonderful and iconic Lighthouse of Chania. Meanwhile, the Greek flag flies proudly above Furka Fortress. Though, leading up to the present day, Chania and the island of Crete have had numerous occupiers over the last millennia. Of course the Venetians, then the Ottomans, and most recently the Germans. As I walk along the promenade and spot the old town in the distance, here we are, it also becomes apparent that the only invasion now is one by tourists. You're welcome. Alright, now here we are. We have made it. I've got the old Venetian port of Chania right behind me, which is pretty much the main centrepiece of the old town. We've got the Küçük Hasan Mosque. So obviously a lot of it is Venetian, and the same structure pretty much still remains from like the 13th to the 16th century, where the Republic of Venice were in control here, pretty much developed it over about 300 or so years. But after that, the Ottomans came in and took it, and that was the first mosque they built there, Küçük Hasan, which is no longer in service, but I'll show you all that. But yeah, it really is a beautiful spot, and probably somewhere you'll spend a lot of time if you come to visit. Let's carry on. So, we now find ourselves arriving into the main centrepiece of Chania. The front promenade is lined with wonderful and bright buildings at the old Venetian port. And in between them and the calmly breaking waves of the Cretan Sea are many bars and restaurants you can indulge in while watching the world pass you by. Though, on this early Saturday morning, I have to say there was a different kind of magic without the crowds. The harbour really is a wonderful place to wander along. And naturally, it leads us to our two next points of interest. And so I carry on walking just another few minutes along the peaceful promenade, until we approach the rather unique building that I pointed out earlier. Anyway, so moving along the seafront, right there, as you can see, we've got the mosque with the most beautiful view right by the sea. And right here, we've got this lovely square. And then the promenade continues over that way, and I'm going to show you a lovely walk. Even though the lighthouse is only there, it's surprisingly quite a lengthy walk, because you've got to walk all the way around. But we're going to do that in a minute. First, I'm going to show you inside the mosque. The Küçük Hasan Mosque was the first built on the island of Crete 380 years ago in 1645. However, it is now solely used as a public gallery on a weekend. The building offers a nice remembrance of the historical past of Chania and serves as an iconic landmark against the backdrop of colourful buildings and the white mountains of Crete. Though, its vacancy perhaps also serves as a darker reminder of the expulsion of the Muslim populations at the end of the 19th century
after brutal interethnic violence. And speaking of violence, again.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, enough of the usual history overload. It's now time for us to head to the lighthouse. Leaving the centre behind us, I head east on what turned out to be a surprisingly long walk, heading past some expensive boats and the numerous dry dock buildings which were used for shipbuilding and repairs in the East Harbour. I then pass the cutest little fluffy family, a cool floating shop, and then eventually make it onto the stone mole which protects the harbour and leads to the lighthouse. Around 20 minutes later, I arrive to the lighthouse, suspended in between the Old Town and the Sea of Crete, to where I find myself immersed in the most incredible scene.
Alright, so here we are. We have arrived at the lighthouse. I'm having to hide away a little bit because it is a bit breezy. But check out that view. Back onto the Old Town. Mountains in the background, it really is stunning. It's taken me about 20 minutes to walk here. But I was also sat here last night, right here.
As you can see, during sunset it is gorgeous. And before we move on, my challenge to you is to see if you can find this cute little trio roaming around the Old Town. Aren't they so cute? And before I head back to my hostel for my midday break, I head inland into the Old Town, to where I stumble upon the cathedral by chance. Its simple stone facade tempted me to take a closer look. But inside the mid-19th century cathedral, it was anything but simple. I got quite the shock at how ornate and interestingly decorated it was. Considering there's no entry fee, it's definitely somewhere that's worth wandering on inside.
Alright, now I've decided I'm going to go and head for a little rest, little nap, but I've still got plenty more things to show you, so don't go anywhere or you'll be in trouble.
Well, after an early morning start, it was honestly dreamy to relax back at the hostel in the sunshine. And by the way, if you're looking for a cheap but lovely place to stay, I can't recommend Cocoon City Hostel enough. It's one of the best hostels I've ever stayed at. I'll link it below in my description. Back in the centre again after a few hours rest, our next main attraction to tick off is the Maritime Museum of Crete, located by the harbour. I enter inside and pay €5 for my ticket. The museum offers a general overview of Chania's history, and plenty of well-detailed models of naval vessels from a range of historical periods. Downstairs, I also stumble upon a shell exhibition, which contained loads of cool things like the jaws of sharks, tons of crustaceans, and most specifically my favourite, hermit crabs. Moving on upstairs, there is an impressive showcase of more modern battleship models, but all that is just a distraction from the real interesting stuff. This exhibition, dedicated to such a short section of history, captures my interest more than anything. Inside, there are a range of artefacts, weapons, photographs and models, which collectively tell the story of the Battle of Crete during World War II, where Axis forces launched an ambitious airborne invasion to capture Crete. British, Australian, New Zealand and Greek troops alongside local Cretan people offered valiant resistance but were ultimately overpowered over the brutal 12-day conflict. Despite substantial losses, many soldiers were evacuated along the south coast by the British Navy. Though the significant resistance by Cretan people to their new occupiers saw ruthless, indiscriminate executions by the German forces. In some cases, entire villages of people were ordered to be executed as punishment. As disturbing as stories like these are, they certainly make wandering the streets of Chania all the more enchanting. Thank God we've got all the heavy stuff out of the way. I think it's about time we properly explore the Old Town now, don't you? Anyway, I'm going to shut up for a change. Let's go for a little wander.
there we are, even just giving you a quick, brief glimpse through the old town. You can see that it's stunning, full of loads of colour, and there's plenty of places to get a drink and some food as well. So I can imagine it'll be really nice on an evening when it's lit up and it comes to life a bit more.
Fast forward a few hours later, I can certainly confirm that the old town comes to life on an evening, which makes for a lovely atmosphere at night to sit back and indulge in the many bars, restaurants and cafes. And after my solo late night Pepsi Max, it's time for bed, so I'll see you in the morning.
Oh, alright, good morning. It's a Sunday at about 9:45 and we're going to head for a nice little walk. Because let's be honest, if you're coming to Chania, you're probably interested in two things, the sun and beaches. So we're going to leave the old town and we're going to head east, I want to say. And let's check out some beaches and see what they're like. Let's go.
And after somehow stumbling into a kids' swimming competition and a 20-minute walk later, I arrived at some beaches. Looking west along the coastline from Chania, it seems there are a good stretch of beaches. On first impression, the area is pretty built up and the first beach is lovely. It seems like it'll make a pretty good place to stay for beach holiday lovers. Walking a bit further along, I find myself on a quieter stretch of beach, which eventually leads to this walkway. On the other side was a beach which seemed much quieter, however it was a bit more pebbly. And looking even further west again, it looked like there were a couple of more really nice sandy beaches.
But I can't be bothered to walk there, it's far, so I'm going to head back into Chania.
On my way back, it's quite fitting that the distant mountains tease of my final adventure. But for now, I sit back to have some lunch before I take you to two final things I want to show you. We head deeper into the old town once more, passing this lovely fountain along the way, which apparently is a pigeon favourite. And then we walk through the variety of shops in the old town. To my surprise, I stumble upon even older city walls, which precede even the Venetian ones by an almost staggering 900 years. Though I have to be honest with you, much of this archaic wall has likely been rebuilt as the centuries of conflict and threat of war pass by.
There we go, talk about timing. I've just walked about 5 minutes from the seafront and we've arrived here, Sifaka Street, or in English, Knife Street. And you can see behind me here, the colours really are just stunning. But I think the reason why it's called Knife Street is, I'm guessing there's been a long trade of producing knives here. So let's go and have a little look. Right, slight problem. There was only one knife shop. Don't know what that's all about, if I just can't find the other ones or if there's just only one left. But I'd still definitely recommend coming for a walk along this street. As you can see with the flowers, it really is beautiful. But now, I know what you've been waiting for. It's time for the big special surprise. See you tomorrow morning.
Our journey begins the next day in the wonderful White Mountains, and finishes along the captivating coast of southern Crete. But in between is a one-of-a-kind 16-kilometre hike through Samaria Gorge, which takes you down twisting mountain paths with otherworldly views. Hiking in amongst rich forests and eventually through magical valleys and canyons with wonderful streams and towering cliffs up above. Join me next week as I bring you along through Samaria Gorge on one of the most incredible hikes I've ever done. It'll be linked at the end of this video. Though before we finish, I do quickly want to mention that there are loads of things to do on the island of Crete. So a few things you may want to check out for yourself are Elefantisi Pink Sand Beach, Balos Lagoon and Beach, Lake Kuranas, and obviously there are also loads of other fun activities you could get up to, like food tasting tours or boat trips with snorkeling and paddleboarding. If you're interested in any of these, I'll leave some links of highly rated and reputable tours and experiences below in the video description and comments section.
Alright, well here we are, pretty much back where we started, at the old city walls. I hope you've enjoyed coming to explore Chania with me, and also I'm going to have 2 full videos coming out for Samaria Gorge, one which I'll link there, which I'll be bringing you along to experience it with me, and another one which will be a full informative guide. I'll also link a European destinations playlist where I've got loads of other videos like this one. Adios.